Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fast Track Dynamics 365 on-premise to Dynamics 365 online migration tool Tech Talk. My name is Jishnu Kargupta. I am part of the Fast Track team in engineering based in Seattle. And I'm glad that I'm here to take you through all the steps of how you can migrate from on-premise to online. The objectives of this session is to understand why we have this tool in the first place, what are the challenges that we have seen and how that led to the development of this tool. Also understand the high-level architecture of how this tool works from beginning to the end. And then we will move on to understand what's the engagement model that we have where you work with your Fast Track program manager for a successful migration from on-premise to online. Then we will quickly look into the tool itself and go through all the steps and stages of what entails in the migration process. And then finally, we will open up for any question and answers. I'm expecting that our audience would have an outcome of understanding how the tool works, the benefits of using this tool and the automation that this tool brings onto the table, and very importantly, understanding the requirements to use this migration tool. All right, moving ahead, in the field today and back in the day, there are only few or couple options for our customers to migrate over from Dynamics on-premise environments to Dynamics 365 online. Some of them, as you might already be aware of, is using SSIS with Kingswaysoft and Scribe. Now, these two tools is all manual. There is no automation involved, and it's a lot of work for all our customers to move from on-premise to online, specifically if they are coming from CRM 2011 on-premise. The reason being there has been so much of changes in schema and how Dynamics 365 has evolved over time. It has become challenging over a period of time to manually map and move data from on-premise to online. Hence, there is a lack of guided process. Everything is manual. There is no automation involved. There is no easy mechanism for us to check for any unsupported customization, which might be hindering the actual migration process. And since majority of our customers are trying to move to online from Dynamics CRM 2011, it was really the reason why we had to develop the tool to make it automated, guided, and easy to use. As you can see, it's a guided process to move from on-premise to online. You have different steps with detailed information on how to execute from stage A to stage B, where you finally migrate over to online. There is validation check that you can run against the solutions that you would choose to upload, and that provides you an option to go through all the customization that you have. Make sure that none of them are unsupported when you actually try to move to the Dynamics 365 online, and then fix them either in the environment that this tool creates for you, or you can fix them on premise and then upload the backup DB file for the migration to go ahead. Finally, the platform level automation really helps our customers to move from one stage to another without any manual intervention. Looking at the overall architecture from a high-level perspective, we use Lifecycle Services, which is basically a portal that holds the tool, and that's where you will access the tool after you create a project, and we will look into that once we go to that step. Then the upgrade process entails creating environments in our customers' Azure subscription, and we do that because of security and privacy concerns. And the environments that the tool creates actually takes you from the version that you're coming from through CRM 2016, and then we move them to Dynamics 365 65 online. As you can see, there are multiple parties involved. Here we use our customers' Azure infrastructure as a service to be hosting the environments that we need for the migration activity. We have our Azure storage account that we use to hold the database backup file that we need to migrate over to Dynamics 365 Online. And then we have the lifecycle services, which is hosting the tool and which continuously works with Azure subscription to host the environments to upgrade the DB from one version to another through CRM 2016. We have the CRM validation service, which runs against the solutions that you choose to upload and provides you with a report with all the customizations that needs to be reviewed by our customer and partner if involved, and to make sure that there is nothing which can break the migration process. And then we have the CRM organization migration service, which finally migrates the customer's database from on-premise to online. As you can see from this picture, the CRM on-premise organization has the SQL, which hosts the SQL DB that we would like to migrate over to online. And that is uploaded into the Azure Blob storage container, which is created by the tool itself automatically. And that is restored into a version that our customer is coming from. It could be 2011 or 13 or 15 or 16. And then it is taken through all the different versions for upgrade process, and then finally, once the DB is upgraded to 2016, we do a web API call to CRM 2016 environment and migrate the DB into online. While we are doing the migration, it's important to know that we do some validation check by the validation checker to make sure there are no vulnerabilities and there is nothing which would not work once the migration has been completed. And that is on the Dynamics 365 side of things that is kicked off once we click migrate. One important piece here to know is that we provide an option for our customers to choose an org name that they would like to use. And once that is done, it's the responsibility of the Fast Track PM to click on the migrate button when exactly the migration step kicks in. This is just an example if you were coming from different versions. So for example, if you were coming from 2011, once you have uploaded the on-premise database backup file into the blob container, the tool takes that DB, restores into CRM 2011 environment. Then the validation check is run against the default solution that comes with the DB. And if there are any challenges in getting that done there, we also have an option to upload the solutions to check and give you a report of what customizations are involved and if there is any validation that is required on those solutions to make sure the migration is successful. Post that, the DB is upgraded to 2013 automatically by the tool itself, and then to 2015, and then to 2016. During this process, the tool makes sure that we minimally use each environment to minimize the cost that our customers incur on Azure side of things. And every single time the work is completed in an environment, it's turned off. And once that is done, 2016 environment provisioning is done, and then the DB is upgraded. We do the web API call, and then the actual migration starts and moves. The DB is moved over as a new sandbox org in customer's CRM online tenant. This is a high-level view of how Fast Track team engages with our customer throughout the process of migration. The most important part is to make sure that we have all the prerequisites checked and make sure that it's done before we start the migration activity. Some of the steps which is outlined here in the prerequisite setup row is that we want to make sure that we have an existing sandbox license which is not in a configured state. We want to make sure that our customers have an Azure subscription that they would like to use for this migration activity with all the roles and privileges that we require. We want to make sure that we have all the users, which would eventually be mapped into the users who are coming from the on-premise Active Directory and resides in the database that we are migrating. We want to make sure that at a specific step, all the users have the required licenses to be mapped to the Active Directory users coming from on-premise, so that once the migration is completed, the users have access and they can log into the new Dynamics 365 online org. Post that, we want to make sure that we have access to all the solution files if we need to upload all the source code for the plugins that we have, if we need to upload that for a quick check by the validation service. The same way for any custom workflow source code that you might have, or any custom application code that you want to be checked by the validation service. The last one is the user mapping, which is an important piece, because that step, we need to make sure that all the users are unique, that we are going to map from Office 365 tenant to the users who are coming from on-premise Active Directory. Once these prerequisites steps are completed, then the actual migration starts, which is the second row, where we take a backup of the DB file, upload it to the blob container, which is created by the tool automatically, and then we set up the environments that we require for the migration, and that depends on which version of CRM on-premise you're coming from. Just to note here that if you're coming from CRM 2011, so the environments which will be created by the tool would be 2011, 2013, 15, and 16. In a similar fashion, if you're coming from 2015, the number of environments which will be created by the tool automatically is 2015 and 2016. And all these environments will be hosted on our customer's Azure subscription. Then we run the upgrade analysis, which is primarily the validation check that we do against the solution files if uploaded or the default solution. Then we have our customer and partner, if involved, double check and verify the report that is created by the validation service, make sure that all the customizations are supported once migrated over to online, and those unsupported customizations are removed so that there is no blocker for the migration to be successful. Just one thing to note here, that this is completely owned and driven by our customer, and if there are any questions and queries during this step, we are happy to help as a fast track team and PMs, but this is completely owned and driven by our customer. Post that, the DB that was uploaded and restored onto the starting environment where our customer is coming from, it's upgraded through all the remaining versions of CRM which is hosted on our customer's Azure subscription. So for example, if you're coming from CRM 2011 environment, the actual DB backup file would be restored to CRM 2011 SQL Server environment, the virtual machine. Once validation check is finished, then that DB is upgraded from 2011 to 13 to 15 and then to 16 finally. And once it is upgraded to 2016, that is what we call as the upgradable or upgraded DB version that is ready to move to CRM Online. And the final step is to provide an org name, make sure that is a unique name that we are providing, and once that is done, your fast track PM would have the ability to click on migrate, which means that the migration, the last final migration of moving your DB, on-premise DB to online kickstarts. Post all the migration activity has been completed, our customers would develop any integrations that are required or point the existing ones to the new org that has been provisioned, and any tests and validations that needs to be done to make sure that there is no functionality loss. If there are any requirements to make sure that out of the box features would be utilized instead of any customizations which were done on premise, that needs to be taken care of as well. And finally, point all the integrations to the online org. Your fast track PM would be available during the entire process of migration, and then pre and post go live activities that are part of this migration and go live approach that has been defined in the beginning. Post that, there are additional services which we call as core fast track services that our customers are more than welcome to utilize. and that is more towards bringing adoption for end users and customers, different audiences, so that it's an easy migration for users who are moving from on-premise environment to online. We do have a lot of services which we talk about, where we talk about features and functionalities depending on what features would be utilized once they are online. And there could be tenant administration that the customer would like to learn more about because it's a new environment that they are moving to. Getting into the details of all the steps that we just saw in the engagement or implementation process in the last slide, when we say that we need to be ready with the Dynamics 365 online tenant and organization, what we actually mean is that you need to have an available sandbox license in a non-configured state, which means that you should not be able to log into that sandbox instance. And you should have all the licensing requirements that needs to be in place for you to apply whenever required. The tenant, if it is located in a specific region and the tool does not support migration to that region, we need to make sure that the tenant is made multi-geo, so that we can move the org or we can move the DB into the supported region, have a quarantine time so that you can check everything is working as expected, and then we can manually move your new provisioned org from the supported regions that this tool works on to the region where your tenant is. So for example, if your CRM Online tenant is in Canada and the tool does not support Canada, we can choose to migrate your DB into the data center which is located close to you, which is East US or West US. And once the migration is completed and you've done all the validations and made sure everything is working as expected, we can move your org into your tenant or your data center in Canada after the quarantine time. That's why it's important to make sure that we have enabled multi-geo on your CRM Online tenant. As far as Azure subscription is concerned, we need to make sure that you have an Azure subscription. It is not pay-as-you-go or partner managed subscription. We do have some issues that we have seen in the past, and we haven't invested much in testing it out to see whether it is something of a blocker. But because of our past experiences in some of the migration activities, we choose to say that it's better not to use pay-as-you-go and CSP subscription. Post that, make sure that the user who is going to work on this tool has or can log into the Azure portal. They have the required roles, which are owner and service admin or co-admin on that subscription that we are using. The storage account is created, and we choose the right region so that it's closer to your CRM Online tenant region, so that there is less of variability in terms of latency when it comes to network. We might have to increase the quotas that we require for provisioning these environments in your Azure subscription. We can take a look at that by going to your subscription. Inside of your subscription, there is an option which is usage and quotas. And inside that, you would be able to see if you have the right amount of cores or right amount of cloud services that we need for the VMs to be provisioned successfully. Each environment has 3 servers that are provisioned. One is Active Directory, one is SQL Server, and one is CRM Server. And each server uses 8 cores. So depending on which version of on-premise you're coming from, we can calculate and make sure that we have enough of cores available, for example. The user licenses are an important piece, because when we map the users, we have to make sure that the users are applied with the licensing that our customers have or purchased, and then we do the actual mapping. The rest of the prerequisites are pretty straightforward. As I mentioned before, we need to make sure that we have easy access to the solution files if they need to be uploaded for the validation check. We need to make sure that the solutions that we are uploading is what is inside the DB that we are trying to migrate over, so that there is equal parity. We need to make sure that we have already access to the source code of your plugins so that we can run the validation check against it. And the same goes for any custom workflows and custom application code that you would like to be validated or listed out by the tool so you can verify and validate them later with your partner or by yourself. Now, the last piece, we get user mapping of all users in CRM on-premise with users in Office 365. We need to make sure that we are ready with the information that which users would map to the users who are coming from on-premise Active Directory, because we do not want to create duplicate user records inside of Dynamics 365 Online instance. So we need to make sure that we have the licenses applied to the users and we know which users we are going to map to which users which are coming from on-premise. So going over to on-premise SQL database portion on this slide, because we have already spoken about the user records, we do support only up until SQL 2012. At this point, SQL 2014 is not supported, so that's an important piece that we need to know. There is no way we know whether if you're on SQL 2014, if you downgrade that to SQL 2012 by any means, whether that's going to work or not, because there has not been enough testing done by our engineering team here to make sure that it's a valid step that is supported by the tool. The database collation needs to be Latin 1 General CI AI for online language code of 1033, which is English. We can modify the database collation as referred in the MS article, as you can see in this slide. The SQL DB has by default two files, which actually stores the data and the logs, called MDF and LDF. And this tool only supports these two file types of the DB that you're backing up and uploading to the blob container. Back in the day, when you were on CRM on-premise, because of the contention that happens if you have one data file, we did recommend having multiple data files so that there is less contention on one data file only. So you would see scenarios where you would have MDF files, which is also an additional data file. But if that is the case here, then the tool would not be able to migrate you successfully. So we need to find a way to make sure that we only have MDF and LDF files of the DB that you're uploading. We need to make sure that the async operation base table is cleaned up and all the jobs are completed. And before you take the backup, it's recommended that you stop the async service just in case that there is no async job which is coming over in an incomplete stage or state. Full text search needs to be disabled in CRM on-premise. And if there are any full text catalogs which exist in the DB, needs to be removed before the DB is backed up and uploaded to the Azure Blob container. Now, coming over to the actual migration process, as mentioned, we upload the back file to the blob container, which is created by the tool inside of the storage account. We need to make sure that the async operation base table size is minimized, as mentioned before. Any extra LDF files or custom indexes that you might have and you think may or may not be useful after migration can be removed as well, just to reduce the size of the DB, which would help in moving quickly from one stage to another. Then we create automatically the CRM environments on our customers' Azure subscription. And so back in the day, we had the CRM 2016 environment, which was created in Microsoft Data Center, but we have removed that and we now create the CRM 2016 environment in our customers' Azure subscription. Now, after making that change, we have seen a huge improvement in the timelines of migration activity itself from end to end. And we do a web API call to your CRM 2016 environment and then migrate over, as mentioned before. The upgrade assessment or the validation check is done by the migration tool, and a list is provided, or a report is provided back, as mentioned before, so that you can validate and make sure that all the customizations are in a supported state. We want to make sure that we are clear that we will have our customer look into the customizations, work with our partner if involved, or internally, so that the customizations are validated and fixed. As mentioned before, it is completely owned and driven by our customers. The next step is where we upgrade our CRM DB that we have uploaded to the blob container from the version that you're coming from through CRM 2016. And that also is automated. There is no manual intervention required. Finally, after you have checked the name or org name, which is unique, and if that is the name that you want for your new org, which will be provisioned, then the final step is to click on migrate and migrate you over to online. Roles and responsibilities, very important piece. We need to make sure that we are aware which roles are involved in this migration activity and what responsibilities each one of us have to make sure there is enough clarity from end to end for this process to be completed successfully. So for example, for our customers, we need to make sure that we have a clear understanding of migration process, how it works from end to end. Understanding of the technical prerequisites really helps, and as soon as that is kick-started, it improves the timeline in terms of moving or migrating you from on-premise to online. The availability of required components, any component which we are going to depend on for a successful migration within the timelines is very important. Making sure that all the licensing part and the Dynamics 365 setup part, whether it's user records or sandbox licenses or user licenses, are completed before we start the migration activity. And planning the overall migration from start to end and post the migration go live activity, and what changes may be needed in integrations, all that is an important piece that the customer needs to plan beforehand so that we can keep our timelines and we can successfully migrate and go live. For our partners, we also expect them to understand the tool and the process involved so that they are helping our customer or handhold our customer if required for as many migrations as they are needed. We need to have our partner enable our customer to have all the prerequisites ready to go. We also need them to work closely with the fast track PM in the overall planning of migration and go live, so that we have enough resources required at any given stage to quickly move on each of the issues that might have been found, or to migrate, or during the migration steps from one stage to another. We also need our partner to really participate with our customers closely on the validation check findings which are shared with our customers, so that we don't spend a lot of time, but we also make sure that nothing unsupported is getting moved during the migration step. And finally, for our partner, we want to make sure that we have a dedicated on-premise developer or admin who can answer questions or resolve any issues which might be found during the validation check or otherwise. We as Fast Track PMs, we provide support from end to end. We work with the project team of our customer to remove any roadblocks if required during the migration step. And we also collaborate with the backend dev team if there is anything that we find in the tool itself. We participate in all the planning activities and pre and post go live activities just to ensure that there is enough traction. We are meeting the timelines, and there is no lack of understanding from end-to-end perspective. Okay, now we will jump into the tool itself. Before we do that, here's an example if you are coming from CRM 2011 environment. So as you have seen before, if you're coming from CRM 2011 environment, we take the backup of your DB, upload it to the blob container inside of your storage account that was created by you, and the blob container created by the tool itself. Then we run the validation check. Once the validation check has been run and we have made sure that all the customizations are in supported state, we upgrade that DB from 2011 to 13, then to 15, and then to 16 automatically. And then we go to the next step where we provide the unique sandbox name and migrate over to online. This is just a little more detail around the validation service that we have. And this is a repeat of what we have seen already, but the validation service looks into the DB that has been uploaded. If it has enough access to look into the default solution, which is part of the DB, that is extracted out into the blob container so that the validation service can check that. If there is any issues while doing so, the other option is to upload the solutions manually into the blob container folders that is created by the tool and run the validation service and provide the report to you so you can manually fix those issues. Now, there could be issues which may not be a showstopper for the migration, but might be a functionality loss when the migration is completed. But they can be fixed before the migration, or they can be left for the post-migration activity because you may not be aware whether you would use that as out-of-the-box functionality might be able to replace it. Okay, so first step is to make sure that you are able to log in and access your Azure portal, that you're going to the Azure portal and the subscription that you would like to use. If you have the subscription option in the left navigation, you can click on that, or you can go to the burger symbol on top left-hand corner and access the subscription, and then click on the subscription that you would be using for this migration activity, and make sure that you have the ability to see or view the subscription ID, because you need access to that to connect the tool to your Azure subscription. Now the next step is for you to log into the Lifecycle Services portal, which is accessible at https://lcs.dynamics.com. We need to make sure that the user who is going to log in is a global admin or a Dynamics service admin on the Office 365 tenant. And the reason for that is that there are certain checks which are done in the backend by the tool itself, which uses the credentials of the user who is running it. And if that user is not a global admin or Dynamics service admin, that check fails. For example, when our customer provides the name of the sandbox name or unique name that they want to use, that is done by using the credentials of the user who is running that test. And if that has enough privileges to query the database and see whether they have available sandbox licenses and the check on the name. Also, there is a step during the migration where we provide all the details of the DB that you're uploading. And in that step, when you click on Save after all the details are entered, the credentials of the user or the UPN of the user is used to find the tenant ID where the DB needs to be provisioned as a new sandbox org. And we will get to that screen soon. All right, so once you're ready to go to the website, you click on Sign In using your credentials, then you accept on the terms here, next screen. Then the first thing that you need to do is to enable the tool on the Lifecycle Services portal, because it's not by default available for you. This is a template which gets enabled so that you can choose the options for the CRM specific migration activity. So a preview code is provided by your Fast Track PM or myself if I'm working with my customer, and our customer would need to go inside of the preview feature management option and paste the code and then click on OK or Connect, and that would enable them to see the template that we need to create the project for this migration activity. Post that, the next step is to create a new project, which would be used for one org specific migration or one database migration. So you would see a plus symbol on your home screen. So once you click that, it'll give you an option to create your project. So provide a name, provide a quick description if you would like to, because you might have multiple migrations that you would like to do. For example, one for your dev, one for your UAT, one for your production. So provide us a small description about what this activity is all about. Choose the product name, which is Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Choose the version that you're coming from. This is a really important piece, because depending on this entry here, the version that you choose, the environments would be created. So if you're coming from CRM 2011 on-premise, you have to choose that, and that would let the tool create CRM 2011, 2013, 2015, and 2016 environments on your Azure subscription. So choose the version, and then choose the method that will be used, which is actually the template which got enabled for you to see and choose by pasting the preview code. So choose the method that this tool will be using, and then click on create. Once you click on create, this is the project view. You are now inside the project, which has 4 different stages, each having multiple steps. And we need to go from stage 1 to stage 4 finally to migrate over from on-premise to online. Now, as you can see from the screenshot, there are multiple steps in stage 1, but when you choose to action on any of these steps, in the next column you would see all the steps required for you to complete each of these steps in the stage, and it's very detailed, so that you don't have to depend on anyone to complete these steps. Okay, now getting into the steps detail. So first step is to connect your Azure subscription to the tool. And the way you do that is you click on Microsoft Azure settings link under environments column on the right hand side, and there you have to paste the subscription ID of your Azure subscription that you're going to use. Now, as you can see from the screenshot here, click on Microsoft Azure settings under environments. Then you will have an option to click on add, and basically this is a connector where you're connecting your Azure subscription with the tool here. So once you do that, you have here an option to provide a name for this connector, and then the subscription ID of your Azure. And then you click on next, and then you will see an option to download a certificate. Now, this is a certificate which is used for communicating between Azure and the tool, and you need to upload that inside of your Azure subscription that you're using. So once you download the certificate and save it to your disk, the next step is for you to go to your Azure portal, click on the subscription, then click on the subscription specifically which you are using for this migration activity. And post that, you will see an option called Management Certificates in the column which gets expanded. Once you do that, you have an option to upload the certificate right over here, as you can see, which is marked in the red box. Now, one thing to note here is that you will only see this upload option enabled for you if you are logging in with a credential which has privileges of owner and co-admin or service admin, as mentioned before. If you don't have those roles, the combination of roles, you will not be able to see or view or click on the upload button here. All right, once you upload here the certificate, you have to go back to Lifecycle Services, choose the Azure region, which should be the region where your CRM Online tenant is and the storage account that you've created. And once you choose that, you can click on Connect. Now your Azure subscription is connected to your tool that is hosted on Lifecycle Services. Now, post that, the next step, which is 1.2, is to install Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. Now, this is a tool which is an easy access to your storage account inside of the subscription that you have access to, and that storage account is what we need for the tool to create the blob container where the DB will be uploaded. So that's the reason we have an option here to choose to install Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. Once you do that, once you click on this link, it will take you to the web page where you can install the Storage Explorer. Once that is done, we go to the next step, which is 1.3. And basically 1.3 is where you provide the details of your on-premise DB that you're uploading. So here you have to provide the name of your company, the name of the organization that is getting migrated over, the version of CRM that you're coming from, the CRM region that you would like to provision it to, which in this case, in this example, is East Coast. The database name, as you can see on your SQL Server Management Studio, the name of the backup file, exactly the way it is, and we have to make sure that we are focused on the uppercase and lowercase as well, because if that is mismatching with the file that you're uploading or the database name that you have, the tool will fail to download the DB from your blob container. Once you provided all the details, as you can see, only Office 365 Global Admin or Service Admin needs to do this. Once you click on Save on the screen, this is where the tool goes and gets the tenant ID where it needs to provision the new org or the DB as a new org. Once that 1.3 is completed, the next step is to create a storage account and connect the storage account with the tool itself. So you need to go back to your Azure portal, click on New on top, create a storage account as you can see on the screenshot, and choose all the options which is true for you. For example, you have to provide a name. You can choose to use Resource Manager or Classic. You need to choose under Performance Standard. The replication part needs to be geo-redundant storage, and make sure the subscription is the correct one that we're using for this migration. And then either you can choose to use an existing resource group, or you can create a new one specifically meant for this migration activity. And then choose the location as mentioned before and click on Create. Now, once you have created the storage account, there are two options for you to get the connection string, which is basically what we need to connect the tool with the blob container or the storage account, for the tool to get the DB, upload it, download it, and also to restore it to the CRM environments which will get created. So what you need to do is you have to go to your Storage Explorer, highlight the storage account that you will be using for this specific migration activity. Once you highlight that, in the left navigation itself in the Storage Explorer at the bottom, you would see primary connection string. You just need to copy that and then paste it inside of the Lifecycle Services step 1.4 that we are doing right now. And you will have an option to create and save a connection string link. Just click that and you will see an option to paste the connection string that you copied over. Once you have completed 1.4, you're all set. Now what you need to do is to create those environments and move from creating and then restoring the SQL DB that you've uploaded to upgrading them from CRM 2011 to 13 to 15 and then finally to 16. Now step 1.5 is where you start creating the environments to be hosted on your or customer's Azure subscription. So there is a link at the bottom in the column next to the steps that we have here. Click on Pre-configure CRM environments. Choose yes for all the terms that are mentioned here, and then it kickstarts the deployment of all the environments that needs to be provisioned. Now, once that is provisioned successfully, it takes about 2 hours to 3 hours. Once it is completed, you will see a completed successfully status once you go inside of this link here. Now, the next step is 1.6, where you have to upload your backup file. So if you go to your Storage Explorer, expand your storage account, and then expand the blob container will be automatically created that. So you have to expand that and then upload the DB backup file or back file into the blob container root folder. And that is the folder where all the files would be automatically created by the tool as well as folders. Now, that is all the steps that are required in stage 1. Once you have completed the stage, make sure to click on Complete Phase button so that that stage is marked as complete, and then you automatically move to the next stage. Stage number 2 is about importing and upgrading your org or the DB that you have uploaded. So at this stage, what we are doing is, if you're coming from CRM 2011 on-premise environment, we are restoring the SQL DB backup file onto the SQL server for CRM 2011 environment, and then we are importing as if you were doing it, as if you could do it from your deployment manager, if you were doing it manually. So it's importing, it's restoring, and then importing it and upgrading your org. So now, if you log in, once this step is complete, and you log into your CRM 2011 environment, you should be able to log into the DB which came from your on-premise environment. Moving on to the next stage, which is stage number 3, is where we run the validation service. As we have restored the SQL backup file, which we are supposed to migrate over to online, now we can run the validation service against that DB or the default solution inside the DB. So click on the link which says Run Validation Service. That takes you to the next screen where you can create a new run. So you can click on New and then provide the name of the check that you're doing, and then provide a run folder name. And when you provide a run folder name, what it does is it creates a set of folders where you can upload the solution files or plugin code or custom workflow codes, if in case the tool doesn't run and get the information from the default solution. So that's why you're providing a run folder name, and then you're clicking on Environment Preparation button at the bottom. Once you do that, it goes and checks if it has enough access to get all the details from the default solution. If not, it creates the folders for you to upload the solutions, the plugin code, the custom workflow code, and any other application code that we need to check. Once that is done, you can come back here and click on Start button that you see grayed out here, as we haven't created this already. So once you create this, the Start button will be enabled. Once you click on Start, it goes and runs against the solutions or the default solution and creates a report which is accessible at the link which says Assessment Report Excel. This is accessible to you any given time, anytime. You can log in and download this report by yourself. So this is the link to the report which you can run or download and make sure that you validate all the customizations that is part of your default solution or the solutions that you have uploaded. At this point, what you're doing is you are working with your partner or internally and making sure that all the customizations that you see in the report is supported. It's not going to be a showstopper for the migration. For example, if you have plugin codes which are not in sandbox mode, the migration would fail for sure. If you have any reference to 2007 endpoints, the migration would fail. If you have any other customization that you are aware is not supported in CRM Online World or Dynamics 365 Online World, you need to make sure that that is fixed in the VM itself, if it is possible, and then we go to the next stage. So at this point, the focus is spending time on the assessment report by the customer, and if required, if you have a partner, between partner and the customer. Once that is completed and we are sure that all the customizations are supported and there is nothing which would stop the migration to complete successfully, the next stage is stage number 4, the final stage, which has 4 steps. But the first step is to upgrade your DB that is coming from on-premise from 2011 to 13 to 15 and then finally to 16. So click on the CRM migration tracker And once you click that, you have an option to start the steps over here. It takes about 2 hours to 3 hours to complete all the steps, 16 steps that you can see here. Once that is completed, now you have a ready to migrate CRM 2016 DB, which actually got upgraded from CRM 2011, available to be migrated over to Dynamics 365 Online. Now, once that is completed, the next step is to map the CRM on-premise users to Office 365 users. And the way you do that is when you go and open up your Storage Explorer inside the block container, which was created by the tool, and where you uploaded the back file of your DB, on-premise DB, you will see a file created by the tool itself, which is adusers.csv. So what you need to do is download that file locally to your hard disk or machine. Make sure that we are not changing the format of the file. It has to be in CSV. Then once you open that file, you will see an entry like the way you see on the screenshot. So the username would be the name or username of the person which is in the DB itself. And you need to make sure that you map it to a user on your Office 365 tenant, which would have the CRM licenses applied to and would be a user, active user in Dynamics 365 Online instance once the migration has completed. So provide the UPN or the email ID that you have on your Office 365 tenant, and you have to do that at the minimum to start with for all the columns where is local admin is set to yes, or any one where is local admin is set to yes. You can choose to map all the users if you need to, but we have to make sure that at least one row where the local admin column is yes is set to an Office 365 tenant user. Once 4.2 is completed, the next step, the final step, is doing the actual migration. So click on Migrate to Dynamics 365 Online, and this will take you to the next screen where you can choose the option to provide a unique org name, and once you provide that name, you can click on check org name availability so that it's unique. Once that is successful, the migrate organization button is disabled for our customers and partners, but is enabled only for fast track PMs. So once that is done, you will let your fast track PM know, and then we will click on migrate organization, and that kickstarts all the steps that are required for a successful migration. Now, as you can see, there are a couple of validation steps. So pre-validation is basically looking into some of the details in the org, but if there is anything that is found that needs to be fixed, it's not part of step number 2 here. But the validation at step number 7 is where it runs the checks again, makes sure there is no vulnerability, and if there is anything that needs to be fixed automatically, the tool tries to do that for you, but there is no guarantee that it would. This step might fail, and we might have to go back to CRM 2016 environment, which was created by the tool, fix that, and redo this step all over again. So once the validation is completed, we are pretty sure at that point in time that the migration would succeed. Now, the other issue that we have also seen here is that if there is any duplicate entry in the user mapping file, the adusers.csv file, if there is a blank entry in the row where the column is local admin is set to yes, the migration would still fail. So we need to make sure that we do our due diligence in the user mapping step that we just saw. Once all the steps are completed, the tool provides you with the sandbox org URL that you can access because the migration has been completed. And here is where we expect our customer and if partner involved to validate, do test runs, and make sure all the integrations are working. When you have pointed that to the sandbox org, make sure that the sandbox org is not in administration mode so that all the users can access and run their checks and balances as well. So this is where finally the migration is completed. Now we can open up for question and answers if there's any. If not, I appreciate your time for being here. I hope this tool makes your life easier when you're trying to migrate from on-premise to online, and it's saving you a lot of time, effort, and cost. Thank you so much for being here.